So you've decided to visit Poland, you've gone to Warsaw, you've decided that you want to take public transport, particularly the trains. You don't speak Polish. So the question then becomes, would you be able to avoid a fine on Polish railways if you had to rely on the communications, the English language communications, provided by the railway service to you? Okay, think of the context. So there's a train coming, you haven't had time to organize a ticket, you've decided, but that is your train and you have to get it. So you decide to run onto that train, and then what do you do? How should you react? Well, the good news is that there is some information that's telling you what you should do. The bad news is how well is that information communicated to you so you can understand that and avoid potentially quite a large fine. That's what this video is going to be about, based on my experiences having travelled on the Polish railways into Warsaw for well over 10 years. It would be interesting to know what you guys think. So, well over 10 years ago, I moved just outside of Warsaw and I take the train into Warsaw to go to work. And it's the fastest way for me to get into Warsaw. So one of those days, over 10 years ago, I was just there wasting time as you do, waiting for the train to get me to where I needed to go. And I happened to look up and I saw this sign. Now, this sign is the sign that tells you what to do if you get on board without a ticket. Let me read you through this sign. Let me know what you think about this sign in the comments below. Okay, so we've got, attention, the traveller not holding a valid ticket for the journey is required to enter the train by the first door, counting from the head of the unit, and report to the train manager in order to acquire a legalized ticket or activate a Warsaw City card. The above also applies to a passenger who obtained an attestation of the inability to purchase the ticket at the counter from the check-in point. Otherwise, the passenger is treated as a person travelling without a valid ticket, except people with disabilities or reduced mobility, blind travelling without a guide or with a assistance dog, on wheelchairs, travelling with or without companion. Severance pay these people is made during ticket control and without additional charge for issuing a ticket in a train. Now, as I was reading that out, I'm sure that you were scratching your head thinking, what the hell is going on? Initially, I thought, remember, this is over 10 years ago, that this was some poor Google Translate of the Polish original, but this is so full of mistakes, grammar mistakes, that it couldn't have been the case. Someone must have tried to translate this, and this is the result. It clearly wasn't checked by anyone, and up it went on the hundreds and hundreds of trains that this train provider has. Let me just go through one or two of these issues here. First of all, you're getting on a train and of course you speak English, you've got some scope of vocabulary of English, so when you see unit, you might not be necessarily familiar with what that is in relation to a train. So that's the first issue, non-familiar vocabulary. Who has obtained? Yeah, I don't know what's going on there either. We've got a Polish inverted commas, or in the lower position, as Polish quotation marks or inverted commas are, which are not in English. So here we've got, let's say, Polish formatting on an English document, which shouldn't be the case. For most English people, this just looks weird, or English-speaking people, this looks weird. But in Poland, this is what happens when this is what they use with Polish writing. Not to mention, of course, the attestation of the inability, which is whatever the hell that means. Then we've got travelling, which is spelt with a double L and with a single L. So we've got a problem with uniformity there. With a assistance dog, so incorrect article there. Severance pay within the context of employment. Yes, I know what severance pay is. In the context of being on the train, what does that mean? I've got absolutely no idea. We've got problem after problem here of trying to understand what this means. And yes, of course, you could have a reasonable guess at what this means. But my issue is, this is a communication in the English language for people who can't speak Polish, and they have to rely on this in order to not pay a fine. You have to follow these instructions to avoid paying a fine. I wrote about this on LinkedIn a number of years ago. I used to write a lot of articles for LinkedIn, of course, and you're welcome to connect to me, by the way. So if you're watching this video and want to connect to me on LinkedIn, then please go ahead and do so. The link to my LinkedIn profile is in the video description below. Just as you're connecting to me, just write a message to me saying, "I saw your video, Simon. I would like to connect to you on LinkedIn." I get lots of other authors to connect on LinkedIn from people who have nothing connected with legal writing, and those I refuse. So if you see this video and want to connect, just make sure you write a message to me saying, "Simon, I saw the video, would like to connect." So I wrote this article, and in this article critiquing this information, I suggested an alternative, which goes something like this. And I'll go and shrink myself down into the corner to not block that, move myself over there. So attention, if you do not have, so I'm employing lots of plain language techniques here, amongst which speaking directly to me as the reader. So if you, not if the traveler or something like this. So it's if you do not have a valid ticket for your journey, or confirmation that you are unable to purchase a ticket from the train station where you boarded the train, which I guess is what the attestation of the inability to purchase a ticket means. If this is a thing where you actually have to get confirmation that you can't get a ticket, which is bizarre, you must go to the ticket inspector who is in the first train carriage to, one, buy a ticket, two, validate your ticket if you have a ticket, but what kind of ticket, I've got no idea, or activate your Warsaw City card. Otherwise, you will be treated as travelling without a valid ticket. I would like to think that's clear, it's understandable, it gives you clear instructions about why you need to go to a ticket instructor, and that you have to go to a ticket inspector to go and do one of those three things to avoid paying a fine. The above rules do not apply to you if you have a disability or reduced mobility, are blind and travelling without a carer or with an assistance dog. If you're blind and travelling with your carer, this exemption doesn't apply to you. That's a bit messy. That could be tidied up, but it's certainly a bit easier to understand than the original. Or are in a wheelchair. In those cases, the ticket inspector will issue a ticket when they would be better, is inspecting tickets on the train. So I wrote that as an alternative, put it onto LinkedIn, people commented, thought nothing of it. That was back in 2015, I think. And then a few years moved on, and once again, I happened to be on the train. And I saw this in 2019. A much better notice to people, communicating to them in a much better way what they should do if they get on the train without a ticket, using a lot of the suggestions that I suggested in my post back in 2015, I think it was. So please note, for passengers without a valid transport document or with an invalid or inactivated ticket, because you have to activate your tickets as you get on and off, or you get on the train, not off the train. Please enter the train through the door nearest the front of the train, so clear directions, and see the train manager or ticket inspector to buy the required ticket to validate or activate a current ticket. Okay, that makes sense. That's easy to follow. I know what to do. Go to the front of the train, not the front of the unit, and go and do something about it. If the train manager or ticket inspector cannot be found in the first compartment of the carriage, please wait in the compartment for their return. Easy to understand, no problems. If the guy's not there or the lady's not there, I simply have to wait in that position, and then I can't get a fine because I'm following the rules, which I understand. If you fail to comply, you will be considered to be without a valid ticket. In this case, apart from the fare, an additional payment is required, specified on the basis of the regulation of the Minister of Infrastructure 2025. So easy to understand. The issue here would be that simply putting up provisions is not helpful from the reader's point of view. It would just be easier to communicate what's in that provision, so then the reader knows straight away what's going on, rather than having to get on their phone, as the internet might have been in 2019, probably with difficulty, to try and find what that is so you are informed. Exceptions: people with disabilities or whose mobility is reduced, blind people travelling without a sighted guide or with a guide dog, wheelchair users travelling with or without an accompanying person. Okay, so we've got some issues with tabulation here. All of these points should be with uppercase letters at the beginning, so capital P, capital B, capital W, and of course there should be an "and" before the between the penultimate point and the last point. But let's forgive that. This is certainly an easier to understand tabulated list. In these cases, you may buy a ticket or activate a current ticket during a ticket inspection without being charged any additional fees. In general, this is a fantastic message. You run onto the train, you haven't got a ticket, you see that, you go, aha, I understand, and you move towards the front of the train. You get your business done, you avoid a fine. In fact, I was so impressed by this that I wrote another LinkedIn post saying, well done to the train company who improved their messages. And then we get to this year. Okay, and here I strongly suspect the lawyers got involved. So with that redraft, I suspect it was the customer service team who was saying, okay, this is how we have to improve it. Let's write it in this way so people can understand. Brilliant. The problem when lawyers get involved is that texts which then become accessible to readers become, let's say, significantly less accessible to readers, because lawyers very often have the mindset that we have to protect the company or we have to protect ourselves, and that's the goal. But the goal is, remember, to communicate to a user, a client, a customer, what their rights are or what they should be doing. Remember, plain language ISO 24995, 24995, I can't remember which one it is, but it will be in the video description below. Tells you put the reader first, not yourself as the writer. So as it says here, I suspect the lawyers got involved because this is what it looks like now. Okay, let's go through this. Attention. Okay, a traveller who has no valid transport document or has a non-legalized, non-active ticket. Okay, a couple of things here. People who might not be familiar with might not be familiar with English, or who speak English very well, know that when you go on public transport, you are a passenger. If you get on a bus, you're a passenger. If you get in a taxi, you're a passenger. If you're not the driver and you're in a car, you're the passenger. If you get on a boat, you are a passenger. If you get on the plane, you are a passenger. If you get on the train, you are a passenger. But suddenly, all of a sudden, here we are, a traveller. So say typical vocabulary here. It's the first sign that a lawyer may have got involved. The second sign here is non-legalized. Once again, what is a non-legalized ticket? This is atypical vocabulary for the situation, the context that someone might find themselves in. So we've got some issues here. And then, of course, is obliged to is classic legal English writing. If you have a look at the original version, what does it say here? Please enter the chain. Just reading through this now. Just simply, you need to go and do something, go buy the ticket. Essentially, that's what the message is. Whereas here it's saying is obliged to enter. And here, sorry, let me just click back on here. This drop down here where we've got the we have an infinitive form, to enter, but the infinitive is split on two different lines. Now, this might not have anything to do with the lawyer, but it's certainly bad design, which suggests that the last person to approve this writing would have been a lawyer, because had it gone to a proofreader or a document designer or a CX or UX person, then you would never have this. This is just simply bad design. The train through the first door from the front of the train, direction of travel. So a point here. I think we can allow ourselves to make the assumption that when a train arrives, people know where the front of the train is in relation to how it arrives. This direction of travel issue just seems to be a pointless specificity that, once again, a lawyer might introduce, but just doesn't have any place in normal everyday English. Most people know where the front of the train is. I don't think you're going to look at a train, see the direction of travel, and think the front is the last carriage. So, once again, this pointless specificity here, I've just highlighted it here, is a little bit strange. Once again, it's an indication for me that a lawyer might have had something to do with the drafting of this document. What's the next issue here? Legalise. Once again, activate, validate, yes, legalise. What else do we have? In the absence of the train manager or conductor. So in the original, it says, or the 2019 improvement, it says, if the train manager cannot be found, just wait. But here it says, in the absence of the train manager, await. So this formalization of the language, not using everyday language, but making it much more formal than it needs to be, is another sign that a lawyer has got their hands on this. And also, this is one massive sentence. Another clear example of how lawyers draft. Put everything into one sentence. This is something that we call overparticularization. If you have a look at the original, I think there are 2 sentences there. Breaks things down, much easier to read. Here we've just got everything thrown into one sentence. Otherwise, the traveller is treated as a person travelling. Why can't we just say you? You will be considered to be, or you will then be, or something like that. There must be an easier way to say this. Then we've got pursuant to, which is a clear example that a lawyer has been drafting a document, because everyday language, normal people, we don't say pursuant to. And then we've got this regulation, which is effectively meaningless because we've got no idea what it is. Then we've got such. Now, if ever there was a giveaway that a lawyer has written a document, is that you're going to see such people instead of a normal determiner, such as articles the, an, or a, or not using articles. In any way, not drafting with such. We've got this weird thing with tabulation here, which also suggests that a professional who gives the green light for documents to then be shown to the public hasn't seen this, because as a proofreader, a copy editor, as someone involved in document design, would never have passed this. So we've got 4 points, which, okay, fair enough. Then we've got the 5th point, which is not in a tabulated list. It just looks as if this is a mistake. There's inconsistency here. And then we've got just a mistake. People traveling with a child under 4 years of old. Of course, this should be under 4 years old or under 4 years of age, which would be unnecessary, but at least correct. But here we've got another mistake, which shows that a proofreader hasn't had a look at this. These persons are checked in. Incorrect use of vocabulary. You get checked in when you get on the plane. You don't get checked in when you get on the train. So this is also a little bit strange. We've gone from a document which was easy to read, easy to follow, easy to rely upon, to a document which has become much, much harder for someone to understand what they should do in potentially a situation of stress. Remember, you're running onto the train, you haven't got a ticket for whatever reason, you need to know what to do to avoid a fine. And if you're faced with these 2 documents, I know if you read the 2019 version, you're going to act in the correct way. If you read the 2026 version, yes, there's a chance you'll act in the correct way, but it will take you much longer to get to the conclusion compared to the 2019 document. And those few seconds might seem like a triviality, but really, I've been on these trains and I've seen how ticket inspectors work. And if you're not moving in the way that you should be moving, if you don't have a ticket, you will get a fine. So it really seconds do make a difference in this case. So really not happy with the way that this document has been changed from the customers, the clients, the passengers' point of view. So what are the conclusions I want you to take away from this video? Some simple ones. Information being communicated to the public should be written in a way so that the public can understand it. Okay, it's a given. Don't write to the public in a way that the public can't understand what they should be doing or have difficulty understanding what they're doing, particularly when the public need to rely on this document. So basic plain language, basic communication principles, basic principles of fairness, I would say. This is especially important concerning rights and potential fines because, you know, it would be really unfair that you can't understand a document which is addressed to you because it's written in the English language, but yet you get a fine because you can't understand how they're communicating to you. Lawyers are not the best at writing to the general public. There are plenty of examples of this, and I'm going to be showing you plenty of examples of this in the videos that I put out. This is the plain language ISO. I couldn't remember the number earlier on, but here it is: 24495, chapter 1, 24492, chapter 2, which is the legal communications chapter. There's now a third chapter. Just a day or two ago, it was published about scientific communication, if I remember correctly, chapter 3. And these are the three questions that you should be, these are the basic three questions that you should have in mind when you're writing to the general public. Can the reader find the information? Can the reader understand the information when they find it? Can the reader use that information when they find that information? For the 2019 revision, I would say very much this would be the case. They could find it, they could understand it, they could use it. As regards to 2015, with great difficulty. With the 2026 revision, I would say once again, it is a difficult document to understand. So the question then becomes, would you get a fine if you were on Polish railways and you were running onto a train without a ticket and you saw that? Would you know what to do? Leave your comments in the underneath the video and let me know.